Welcome to the Recruitment Mentors podcast. My name is Hisham Azuz. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Blaine Daws, who is the co-founder of Wanted, who are a professional search partner that operate in the technology space, which he launched in April this year with his business partner, Carl. Before this, Blaine has worked in the industry for over a decade, working his way up from consultant to a head of division position, and along the way has achieved several top biller of the year achievements before launching his very own agency this year. Blaine, thank you for joining me.
No, it's good to be part of the podcast. I've been a subscriber for a while now, so it's good to finally be
Here
on.
we are, from subscriber to guest. So where I always like to start is, in your opinion, what characteristics and traits do you think make up a highly successful recruitment consultant?
Yeah, I think there's two key ones for me. The first one is every morning having a healthy mind. And the second thing is being resilient, because the job's tough at times and you've just got to keep knocking away with it. So they're the two key things for me.
Tell me more about this healthy mind. That's interesting. I'm curious on that.
Yeah. So healthy mind being just to start the day fresh, with coming into the office, leaving any worries with you at home. I always say to all of my team, or even myself, just I get up in the morning, look in the mirror, say, look, what do I want to achieve today? And just walk out the door with just a clean mind. Because if you bring things into work with you, everyone gets stressed at times, job, family, everything else, especially with the times that we're having at the moment, it can really distract you. And I'm just a big believer in, healthy mind is key. And just leaving all that stuff behind you and just starting fresh, because every day is a new day.
Being present. Love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where just let's just focus on this for a second, because I love the fact that that's one of your core attributes that you think for successful recruiting. So I guess, where does this come from, Blaine? Because I'm sure you haven't always had a healthy mind, right? So where have you cultivated that from, or why has that become so important for you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I went through challenging times through my life, and there's different things. Being a young dad, and a dad, that I was never planning to have a child or anything like that. So it was.
How old was you?
It was. So I was 24.
Wow.
Because my son is 5 now. So yeah, it was early, and me and my wife, we just wasn't planning that, and it was when I was like pretty much just starting my career properly in search, and we didn't have a property, we were renting, and having a child was so unexpected. And I learned early on is there was lots of financial challenges, lots of other challenges that every young person goes through. And for me, it was about tracking my success, but just making sure that my mind at all times was in a clear state. And that was the key. And I've done really well from having that. And that's been a rule now that I literally just put into my book, that it's so important just to have a clear mind, because you can be so distracted nowadays by the media or anything going on. And the problem is you can easily get down by that, and it's easier said than done. But you've really got to be disciplined and just keep your mind healthy, whether that's exercising in the morning. So I get up in the morning and go for a long run or a bike ride, or maybe it's watching something, because everyone has different drivers. For me, it's just about getting up and getting out the door and running and taking my mind off of stuff.
And real, just last thing on this, because I find this really interesting, is, so if I'm listening right now and I know that's maybe a weakness of mine, or I do find it hard to have that clarity of mind, or I am easily distracted, or I don't have a sort of I don't have that mindset towards starting a new day. As you said, distractions or external influences that I can't control that might be affecting me. If that's family, if that's obviously life, what's going on right now. Just if I'm feeling if I feel like my mind's more cluttered and I'm finding it difficult to be present, like, what would your advice, maybe 3 best bits of advice for me to get closer to having more of the mindset that you're talking about, that clearly is really helping you?
I think the first thing is, and it might sound stupid, is just take a breath. Take a deep breath, and just evaluate things. around you. You know, what's positive? Focus on the positives. If you can train the brain to just get the negatives away and just have the positives, and breathe, you know, because a lot of people get panicked and anxiety and stuff like that. And most of it is down to breathing. Just take a deep breath, think of positive things, but also, you know, sometimes just look around you and just be grateful for kind of what you have. So many people just want more, and there's pressures in work. But also, I think it's so important to have two people around you that you can talk to at any time, whether that's professional or family, but just have two key people that you can just pick the phone up to, and just, if you need to just literally just get everything out of you, they're there as a sounding board. And if you've got that, then it really does help. If you haven't, again, you know, just try and find someone. There's always people out there, and I'm always open to being one of them people as well. If someone needs a sounding board that's listening, that can't get that healthy mind.
Yeah, I love that. Do you meditate?
I haven't done the meditation thing. I've got friends that do it.
I'm just interested because you went to the breath, which obviously
that's
part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I know. I haven't done it massively. I've done different training exercises with breathing, which you could say is a form of meditation.
Oh, for sure.
But no, I haven't got deep into it because, but I know that can really help as well. But maybe that's on the to-do list next year.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's start unpacking this journey then, Blaine, because obviously, so you launched the recruitment business, your own recruitment business in April this year.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously in challenging times and strange times.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of things that you achieved before then, right? So I'm definitely keen to talk to you about what gave you the confidence to take the leap in these things.
Sure.
But very quickly, like, how would you describe the beginning of your recruitment career?
Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I came from a new business background within technology, but I was selling to different infrastructure companies. So I had an understanding of technology, but I didn't know how to put sort of bums on seats, for example, in recruitment. So I had to learn that from scratch, and I had to learn that really quickly because, like I say, I was told I was going to be a dad about 6 months into my recruitment career. So it was like I needed to learn fast. But I learned the thing with recruitment was you can easily overcomplicate the process, and it's just about sticking to, you know, a methodology that you think works, and just sticking to it, not going off course, because recruitment's quite simple if you stick to just the things that is important. You can easily get sidetracked with different technology tools these days and different things, but if you just stick to the process, I'm a big believer, stick to a process that works and you'll get the results you want, and don't deviate from the process. Sometimes create new processes in it, but it's not just a one or two trick pony in recruitment. I think you've got to have different ways of working with different clients.
So what if you could go back and speak to Blaine, who just found out he's going to be a dad, first year in recruitment?
Yeah.
What would you say to him?
Breathe.
Yeah.
No, I think the key thing was I was surrounded by good billers in my last company. Everyone was a lot older, a lot maturer than me. So the average age within that business was about 30 years old, which is obviously quite old. And it was very much a traditional search business. So for me, I don't think I would have done much differently because I progressed really quickly. But I think the reason why I progressed quickly is that I surrounded myself by good people. They had a good process that I learned and I stuck to. And I think it's just all about being sort of disciplined and really just, you know, understanding, you know, what drives candidates, what drives clients, really getting into the needs of those candidates and clients, and really qualifying and not being afraid to lose business, because I think a lot of consultants, they just want to win everything and sometimes anything. And I think sometimes it's better if you're more selective in the types of clients, the types of candidates you work with, and just being open and honest. If you can't help someone, just let them know. And feedback's critical. I just make sure that every candidate that I'm working with, I'm always feeding back to them, and also giving them guidance about what went wrong in the process. Now I know that's harder for maybe if you're doing mass recruitment at scale. That's probably difficult. Where a lot of my work is retained or exclusive, I can easily sit here and say, well, that's what I do with my candidates. I can understand if you're running 20 jobs and it's one consultant, then you can be overworked, and it's hard to do that.
Okay. So just to frame this up a bit then. So from what I saw online, so you've worked, before you set up Wanted, you worked at 2 companies.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
before you set up your own agency, you progressed to the being a head of division. And was it like 8 people you had on your team before you left?
Yeah. So when I left, there was around 8 people, and I was a shareholder within the business as well.
Okay.
It was the best performing practice for 3 years running. And it was the practice that had the least amount of experience as well, because I was running it, because the people that did work in the business, they were great guys, but they'd been there for over 10 years, each of the practice leads. So they had a pretty much triple the amount of recruitment experience that I had.
And you managed them?
No. So I run the data center and AI division. Another guy run the cyber.
Oh, sorry,
division,
the other. Okay, got you.
Other practice leads. Yeah.
Okay.
But we were the best performing practice for 3 years running.
All right. So let's just unpack that a bit, and then we'll dig into the you being a business owner and what you've learned.
Yeah, definitely. Right? Yeah, sure.
So firstly, obviously, like, it's just interesting the words that you use, right? Calling it practice, and obviously a lot of the things that you do is mainly search. It's retained. So, like, for anyone listening, right, there'll be a lot of agency recruiters that listen to this, and there will be people that listen to this that do work retained, or it might just be exclusive. But there'll definitely be people that may want to do more retained as well. So I haven't had many recruiters on here that sort of articulate or say, I worked for a search practice, right? It's a recruitment agency. That's what people call it, right? So in your own words then, like, what is the main difference of you going, I work for a search practice, rather than me saying I work for a recruitment agency?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's borderline, because they are very similar. It's just the level you operate at. So typically I'm working with C-suite, so CIO, VP of sales, etc. Most of them people aren't actively looking for a job. Some of them don't even have LinkedIn, believe it or not. And it's just about really going deep, undercover the client necessarily who's looking. It's probably normally that they're replacing someone that don't know they're getting replaced at a senior level. They cannot advertise the role directly. They cannot be seen to even be doing this. So you're like a very, very good detective, and you're kind of just going under the radar, normally under a non-disclosure agreement. And they will expect, because of the fees that you charge, typically is anywhere between 20 and 30% of total package, they expect a very good service for that. And you would get a short list of, say, 10 people. You would narrow that down to 5. You'd meet all of those candidates face to face. You'd take them through an interview briefing session before presenting them to the client. Normally that's done either face to face or virtually nowadays on Teams, and then from there, you're getting a payment. So normally, typically, the way a retainer would work is obviously it's a third up front, a third on shortlist of the 5 candidates, and a third on the candidate starting, and that's typically how it works. Now, I suppose the language of people that work in search and work in recruitment is quite different as well. And that's probably just down to the level you're operating at, the people you're speaking with, but also the level of service you're providing. Sometimes, in my old business and even with Wanted, we do psychometric testing on certain leadership roles if it's needed and the client wants that. And typically, when we go out to market or there's a bid that comes up, say, for example, I don't know, X is looking for a CEO or a VP of sales, we're going to be coming up against management consultancies, Russell Reynolds, Korn Ferry, some of these other smaller boutique search businesses as well. We're not coming up against sort of, say, Michael Page or Reed, for example. So I suppose it is very different in that sense, because we're not just in a big pool full of sort of PSLs. Typically, the client will have a PSL, but then they have an exec search partner, and that the PSL do a lot of the volume work. The search partners may only do 4 or 5 hires.
Yeah. Interesting. So the next thing I want to ask you about is the retain piece, but very, very quickly, Blaine.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of people that listen to this that do want to do more senior appointments because they recognize, I guess it's not just, oh yeah, it means I can earn more money. It's actually the things that you're talking about, that actually there's that perception of service, right? There's something that comes up with that the client expects it, and as a good recruiter, that's what you want to go above and beyond on that service, rather than maybe always being involved in that sort of lower level end where it is more transactional on these things, right? So how did Blaine, late 20s, whatever age you were, deal with, I guess, the potential self-doubt of dealing with C-suite, dealing with these old, typically, and they're not always going to be older, obviously, but I think that's a really interesting thing. If you think of typically recruiters, and I was one of these people at the beginning of their career, put clients on the pedestal, let alone going into a search firm and dealing only with the C-suite and the senior people. It'd be so easy, I guess, to fall into that. So I guess, how did young Blaine deal with that? Did you have to deal with the self-doubt on that? How was that journey? Because I feel like that is something that people have to overcome when they want to sort of transition to the more senior appointments in their space.
Yeah, sure. I did it by really gaining a knowledge of the client's business. I always said that to do a good job for my clients, I need to kind of be like a candidate that would get a job in with that client. So I'd always read their latest press releases, look at their financial reports, look at the change that's happened within their business, and talk about that change. I very rarely talk about recruitment. It's really interesting. I just typically talk about how their business is going, what their growth plans are, what sort of product lines they're looking to launch, if I can be of any assistance. So I try and be a partner to all of these companies. And I think that was the key thing for me. And you probably notice, I'm going to do Data Center World next year in Frankfurt. I've spoken at a lot of tech conferences where the subject isn't really recruitment. It's normally tackling the skill shortage. How can we get more talent into the sector, for example? It's not about, okay, well, this is how I can help you recruit. Off the back of them shows, you don't normally get much recruitment business from it either. But what you do get is a name to be known in the industry. And I think that's what I did really well, was being that sort of go-to person within the data center market. But you've got to find a niche, and you need to be a specialist within it. And you've got to have references to back you up. So I see a lot of people coming through the ranks, and I look on their LinkedIn, and they don't hardly have any recommendations or anything like that. But I think definitely in exec search, you've got to have C-level references visible, because it gets to a stage as well where the industry is a little bit biased. It's not what you know, it's who you know eventually.
So basically what helped you, I guess, it was you being really curious then, and sort of not going into these causal relationships feeling like you have to know everything, because you don't. It's your job to be curious, ask the right questions, and find out what their actual business problems are. And okay, so okay, let's just talk about the retained piece really quick.
Yeah,
because what was the average deal size for you then? It must have been quite big.
So average deal size at the moment, I was just doing my stats for the year, is 40K this year.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because because obviously you said practice 3 times a year and the biggest performing, whatever. What's been your best year then as a search consultant, billing wise?
So billing wise, my best year, just me personally, was without any resource or anything underneath me, was 385.
Right.
And that was placing 8 people.
That's a crazy thing, I think. Doing 8
So,
deals in a year.
yeah. It was 8 deals, obviously large
Yeah.
deals. But again, when you're charging, 30%, that was what it typically was, of package. And these packages, 300,000-400,000, it's not too hard to do.
Yeah.
In the search world as well, that's not that big. I make you laugh. I won't say the name, but I actually was going to go and join a big search business. And I was in interview with a guy from Italy, and he'd been there for 22 years. He was a really great guy. And I told him what I build. And he said to me, yeah, that's not very good. I said,
Really?
I thought it was amazing, right? Coming from where I was, but it wasn't very good in his world. And he said, look, our average search consultant bills, 1.2 million. And our top performing biller in the US is doing 4.2 million it was. And I was like, wow. And then I just was like, wow, I'm a bit of a little fish now. I thought it was a lot, but it wasn't.
Like for me, like just so like what's the average like process length then of that? Because that must be long as well.
Yeah, I mean, the longest deal I'd done was about 4.5 months from start
Yeah.
to finish.
But what typically how long might the process take?
Typically, it's about 3 months.
Right.
A search should take.
Yeah.
So I did a retainer in April, and the candidates sort of started around August time, and that was sort of like a very senior cyber
So I think
person.
that's a sort of just different dynamic, isn't it? Like sort of doing all the things that you need to do during that time, and it's just typically longer and stuff like that, right? I think that could be challenging for
However,
people.
I must say I was and I still am an out and out sort of search guy, you could say. But I've learned the contract recruitment model, and that was
Right.
from Carl, and I absolutely love it. And just this year has been incredible because I kind of got my contract book up to 40,000 a month.
Really?
Yeah, during COVID. And that's like we've got quite a number of runners out, and I loved it because it was a breath of fresh air. I was like, right, ring
Just
the
way
candidate,
more like more fast paced.
get him on site. Obviously, Carl is a contract recruiter, entrepreneurial guy, done serious amount of contract work, but. And I've learned so much from Carl for the contract piece, and I absolutely love it because. I've just done 2 deals like this week. I mean, normally like I'm doing 8 deals in a whole year. And it's like, wow, I'm
that
2
must
deals.
definitely be nice. For sure.
I definitely love it as well, the contract stuff.
Yeah. So really quickly then, so a lot of people, maybe through this period or whatever, but there will be recruiters that listen to this that do want to transition into retained.
Yeah.
Right. So like, have you had people come into your team before that has never done retained before and then they have to do retained? Has that happened before or not? Yeah. So really quickly then, what are the main challenges that you see that recruiters, I don't know, may perceive themselves or assume or find difficult to go from not doing retained to doing retained? Like because people find that difficult to do that transition. So like from your perspective, like why do you think recruiters sort of find that challenging and what do people need to overcome?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the first thing is you if you peel back the onion skin, it's do they actually ask the client, can they be retained?
And so that's number one. Like
that's number one.
Literally by asking that you'll have even way more opportunities than you think. Yeah, first thing, actually
ask the question, because a lot of good contingent recruiters, they've got a great relationship with the client, but they don't know they do retain. So if you don't ask, you don't know. So ask the question. The second thing is you need to be perceived as being niche. A lot of recruitment companies, it's quite broad in what they do. And if you're broad, then why would the client
More
retain
difficult,
you?
yeah.
That's the key thing. If you generally are just doing one market, that's the market you operate in, then I would say that the only challenge not to do retained is just not by asking the question,
Yeah.
because that's the main thing that I see with people coming in. And I say, well, look, did you actually ask the client? Oh, no. Well, our company don't do that. But would your company take the business? Yeah, of course. Well, ask the question.
Yeah. So just quickly on this, because the common thing that I hear from recruiters when on this conversation is, okay, Blaine, yeah, I can ask, but what's the difference between retained and me just doing it contingent? I'm
Okay.
worried about if I don't deliver and these things, right? So what, like, if I say to you, well, okay, yeah, Blaine, I didn't ask, but what's the difference?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've got to back yourself 100%. You've got to have that mindset that you're going to deliver, because if you don't deliver, then there'll be big problems and challenges for that client relationship moving forwards. Because when you're obviously pitching for retained business, is you're the go-to partner for that role. You're going to fill it, and you'll do whatever you take to fill it. I'd say so. You've got to back yourself 100% on the retainer. You've also, I think the key thing is you've really got to understand the brief from the client. So the vacancy, does it exist? I use the phrase purple squirrel to people all the time, because a lot of clients, they just are looking for something that doesn't exist, or it's two skill sets brought into one for obviously just one salary. And I always say to them, listen, I can't find this. It's like me going to Richmond Park and looking for a purple squirrel, and they laugh. But it's a great analogy, because a lot of the time clients always want something that doesn't exist. So you've got to be known as that market specialist that can educate them on what they need. The other thing is I'd say you've got to be able to justify why you should be retained, and you've got to use like technology around you. So there's tooling which isn't cheap, like LinkedIn Talent Insights is a great tool. There's obviously Horsefly as well, which is another tool that you can use that basically takes all the data of the role that you need, puts it all into a very nice glossy PDF, and tells you where the candidate might come from, where the company, how hard it is to find that person,
And that's part of the
diversity.
service.
Yeah, I would say you've got to offer a service if you're going to be retained, especially at a board level, because otherwise the problem is it's probably going to be quite challenging to win it.
Yeah. So only thing on this, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
You just said if you don't deliver, there'll be big problems.
Yeah.
So
Well, you'd lose the client relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just talk about that for a sec, because I think this sort of potentially happening is what stops a lot of people asking, right?
Yeah.
So, like, have you had that happen before, and how did you resolve it, or how did you overcome that? Like, talk to us a bit about a time that maybe that happened and what actually happened.
Yeah. So I had it once before. It was the second year into my recruitment career. I was working on a role in Germany, and we found the lady for it. She was going to do around a 2-hour drive every day to Frankfurt. She was totally, sold it to me and the client that it was possible to do. And then in the end, what happened is that for some sort of strange reason, she sort of said that she wasn't able to do it. And it was like within the first month. And what happened was the client was like, well, you told me she could do it. Obviously, she's told me she could do it. But she's going to have to go, right? And then instantly the client says, look, we've paid all this money. We understand from the terms and conditions, that's sort of like the end of the road. And he said, if that was the case, I get it that it's not just your fault, but your qualification should have been much better. Who's a German guy, very senior. Now, they're very process driven, right? And I said to him, okay, well, look, from a company point of view, yes, you're correct. We can't do anything. But from a personal point of view, I'll backfill the role. I'm not going to get any reward for it, but I will backfill the role. What I did do was I went to my CEO, my last company, and he says, yeah, no, definitely, go and do it, fill the position. And then 8 weeks later, I found a replacement candidate, but it wasn't easy because it was a really, really niche role. And there wasn't many people in the area. And that's, you've got to go the extra mile. If you're not prepared to go the extra mile, don't do retained work, because it's not fair for your clients, but also it's not fair for whether it's your own company or you're working for a company, because you can lose business quite quickly if you don't deliver.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. That's super interesting. So what I'd love to just get your thoughts on, Blaine, before we talk about Blaine, the business owner, is what people love to find out and know about on this podcast, Blaine, is what does Blaine's typical day look like?
Yeah.
Right. And that might be slightly different now when obviously you're a business owner, there's just way more hats to wear. So maybe do it when you was someone that was just reliable for your own billings, right? So when you had your best year just yourself, the typical question that people want me to ask is, what did Blaine's typical day look like? How did he structure his day when he was billing half that, 150K or less than that, compared to how it looked when he was billing 350K? What would you say were the main differences were?
So I think it was at the start, I was like sort of go in the office at 8:30 and leave at 5:30. I was at the start of my career. I wanted to be in, then I wanted to be in the pub or the bar with my mates.
Right.
I didn't want to stick around. And I would bill, 150, 180, without really, breaking too much of a sweat. And then when I, got more responsibility, for example, I would be sort of pretty much the first one into the office and the last one out.
Right, so let's break down that day then. Give it to me, come on.
So I used to work literally 20 minutes from my house. So I used to get up at 6 a.m. I used to go to the gym. I had a personal trainer at that point. So I'd go and train with him in the morning for an hour. He'd make me vomit and everything else at the start, do loads of HIIT workouts, and then literally swim, sauna, shave in the office. By sort of 8:30. 8:30 to 11 o'clock, it was business development. It was literally calling clients, seeing what business is out there, speaking to them about their future plans, future growth, etc. Then I would at 11 o'clock I'd have an admin session of half an hour. Then I would go outside, normally walk across to the Costa Coffee, grab myself a latte, come back, literally market candidates out to these clients. That was 12 till 1, then go on lunch, 1 till 2, 2 till 5, business development again, back on speaking to clients. Then from about 5 to literally my wife used to kill me until about 8 p.m. at night, I'd be marketing candidates out, because what I normally found is that most recruiters are like postmen, raw mail. You don't know when they're going to come unless you got a time, slot. But normally, your postman, oh, okay, send an email of a CV. Oh, well, I sent a CV out. Yeah, okay, but was it when the client was expecting it? No, I just sent the CV out. Okay, great. Well, I don't know where that email's gone. You don't even know if he's got it. He probably hasn't. He gets 100 emails a day. I didn't want to be the postman. I wanted to be the FedEx. That you get 15-minute time slot, show your ID, signature. They know when you come, you are there with your ID. Otherwise, you ain't getting that parcel. And I would just make sure that I was known to be tying clients down. So I'd always say to my clients, when is good for me to send CVs to you? When are you going to be online? When can you give me 5 minutes just to look through 2 or 3 profiles? When can you give me 3 slots of half an hour telephone calls so I could pre-book them in your diary? Trust me, go with me. The candidates are good. I'm your trusted partner. We're going to work in this together. And I think that was the difference. That's what took me from 180K biller to 3 years running, billing over 300K individually, and a practice billing over $1 million. That was the key thing. Don't be Royal Mail postman. I've got nothing against Royal Mail, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's a good analogy. It's a great analogy. It's really good. I love that.
But that's what took me to where I am today. And just be that go-to person. Live and breathe your sector. Speak at events. I used to be so nervous of like talking in crowds or anything.
Right.
I remember.
I want to ask you about that. Right. So just
brilliant.
no, I will ask you that. So just final thing on that, because I love that insight. I think people will get a lot of value from that. So let me ask you this question, which is the final thing on this. I think this is such an interesting question, but the question is that I get some from people, or got from a couple of people is like, when you get a high performing biller on, they'd be really interested to know what you think is the most important action or KPI that you think contributed to your success.
Yeah. Just one.
Yeah. Or like just what comes up for you. What do you think are the most important action, or 1, 2, 3 actions that you think really contribute to your success?
Yeah. So you've got to plan your day.
Yeah.
That's so important.
So organization.
Organization is so key. So if you plan your day, and then also get, a little whiteboard or notes in your phone or something like that, but have 3 things that you want to achieve for that day. So planning and 3 goals, and that could be little steps. It could be kind of, speak to this client or speak to this candidate or do a video, on LinkedIn. It could be anything, but business related, of course. But get 3 things that you want to achieve in a day and be planned. And then I think if you do that, and you stick to that, you'll go far.
Love that. So let me ask you then, because you were talking about, it was one of the questions that I sort of put down to prepare for this. Like, I saw that obviously you've spoken at a number of industry events. And look, I think obviously a lot of people that listen to this podcast will hear people talking about the importance of branding and these things, right? And you said the word go-to a lot of the time, which is obviously what recruiters want to achieve, that go-to status. And obviously, being able to speak, gaining credibility through the actual industry and your industry peers will definitely help you do that. So I guess if I'm someone listening to this where I'm like, I do want to have that opportunity to speak at industry events or be invited or whatever, what do you think you did that gave you that actual opportunity, or to actually get invited to speak? How did that happen?
So I actively approached a number of shows. At the first, I was trying to call the event organizers. I was getting fobbed off. They just wasn't interested. Who's Blaine Daws? We don't know you. You work for a recruitment company. I'm not the typical sweet spot for them. Then I actually sent an email to the sort of event owner. And it was along the lines of, look, give me a shot, give me a slot that isn't, in prime time. Just give me a shot. Let me deliver my message. There's a huge shortfall of talent. I'm not here to sort of promote my business or my brand. I'm there to generally talk about the industry. And then in the end, I broke the ice, and I literally got my first one at the Excel. It was Data Center World. It was like a really not great slot. It was at the back of the room, I remember. And the audience was fairly, because it's at the Excel, it's fairly large. You could probably say, maybe 40 people, for example, there. But considering, you've got hundreds in the main arena, it was very small. But after that, for some reason, I don't know what it was, but loads of people after the event was coming up to me saying, Blaine, look, it's a really interesting point. We're really struggling with diversity, within the workforce. We're really struggling with getting young people, like yourself into the sector. What do you recommend? What do you do? And the event organizers instantly were like all over me like a rash. They're like, can you do Singapore? Can you do Frankfurt? Wow. Can you do Abu Dhabi? Can you do that? And I was like, wow, for someone that basically was almost rejected from a lot of these events. Now it's like they're approaching me saying, look, please, like, speak at the event.
Yeah, I love that.
You
No,
know,
that's
so I
great. Great
think
story.
that's how I got in.
So just real quick on this. I think people listening, yeah, they may see see events that they want to attend and stuff. So if I'm sort of saying to you, Blaine, right? So I've mapped out
Yeah,
10 events that I'd love to speak at. Obviously, I'm a
yeah,
recruiter. There's a good chance I might get
yeah,
rejected. What would you?
yeah,
How would you encourage me to approach it? Like, what would my angle be? So it seems like what you said was like, look, I'm not there to sell. So that's rule number one, obviously, right? You're not
yeah. That's
there to
number
just
one
promote
rule.
your services, right?
Yeah,
So what
yeah,
was the angle? Because obviously you're not the data center expert. You don't get paid to do that, right? You're
yeah,
never going to be as
yeah,
competent as those people. So
yeah,
to think that you
yeah,
can talk about something as technical as them, you're going to be worried about that. Probably won't be
yeah,
that. So what was the
yeah,
angle then? Was it like, hey, I speak to people all the time and I know this is a problem? I think a bit like, how
yeah.
would you
I
encourage me
think
to
it
approach it?
was.
What would the angle be?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, in the data center world, it's known to be an older industry. There isn't much young talent come into it because, you know, A, most people think data centers are not important, you know, and B, they don't even know what they are. You know, they think cloud and they look in the sky, for example. But it's like, it's about really, you know, finding there's always a shortfall in every single sector. Yeah. And it's just about finding what's the shortfall and, you know, can you add value to their show? If you can, then they'll have you on board. The key thing is just you've got to know what you're speaking about. So I had a nice little glossy deck, one pager, sent it to them. This is what I'm going to cover. This is what I'm going to do. Here I am. And you know, have a good shop window as well. I mean, social selling's big now. You know, I've been big on LinkedIn for a while in terms of not like big influence or anything like that, but I just use LinkedIn a lot. I publish content that I think is relevant for my target audience, and you know, I think the event organisers look at that as well. You know, and recommendations help. Recommendations have really helped me throughout my recruitment career.
Yeah,
I
love
think,
that.
uh,
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think just the only point that I would add is like, yeah, as a recruiter, if you're listening to this and want to have that opportunity to speak and be more involved in your industry, then yeah, don't forget the amount of people that you speak to in that industry compared to the actual people in it. So like, if you think, Blaine,
exactly.
how many sort of C-level people you speak to over a year compared to how many CEOs speak to other CEOs in that year, it's going to be double, triple,
Yeah,
quadruple that. So actually, the value
for
that you
sure.
bring is those insights, right? It's that. Well,
Yeah,
actually, yeah, you're the fifth CEO that I've spoken to this week that also shared this challenge. Oh, really? That's interesting. I thought it was the only person, right? And it's
yeah,
those insights that you can bring to the table and be the facilitator, right? And sort of
exactly.
bring that out. So, okay. So, last question on in terms of before you start on this business, just because when you shared your daily plan, there was a lot of time for business development. So for you personally, what's been the most effective method for you to grow your client base?
In for the business development side, yeah.
Yeah, like you can obviously refer to how you do it now, whatever. But in your experience, in your journey so far, like what's been the most effective method for Blaine to drum up business, to grow your client
Yeah,
base?
yeah, sure. Meeting people face to face before COVID. Um, I was known, even if I wasn't booking a client, I would always meet everyone face to face.
Mm,
I think it really helped me because you can look people in the eye, you know, and they really get to know Blaine as well. Not just so easy to fob people off on an email or a phone call.
yeah. But what was
Um,
the this is why you should sit down with me, even though I've got no jobs to talk to you about or anything like that. Like, why? How did you get them to actually sit down with you?
I think yes, it was the work I've done in the sector. So obviously, I was known for doing a lot of projects. I was very active on, like I say, social media, LinkedIn, you know, event shows. Also speaking to multiple people daily because I enabled my reach was huge because I would do so much business development. So I was like, you know, the information gatherer and I found out about things that they didn't even know what was going on in the sector. So when I'd speak to someone, say, look, you know, you should speak to me. You know, I know what's going on in the industry. I know these projects are coming up, and this is like real information. It's not made up. And they would instantly sit back and think, wow, you really do know your subject. Look, let's have, a half-hour meeting, sure. And that was the key thing to me. Just know your industry and the business will come.
Yeah. Okay. So what's been the most unexpected thing for Blaine then since having your own recruitment business that's happened so far?
Staff.
Oh, talk to me. What do you mean?
Trying to find the right staff is really, really challenging because look, we're a startup recruitment business. We haven't been around long. Haven't got a track record like some of the bigger businesses, especially where we are in Monument. There's lots of other big recruitment companies around, and that's just been the real challenge. Just trying to grow the recruitment business, and just consultants work very differently to maybe how I've worked in the past, and it's just kind of just seeing who culturally fits for the business because we're still very small. And that's been our biggest challenge so far. And I think it's everyone's challenge, just finding good staff and people that genuinely want to do recruitment as well, because we've even been speaking to some graduates and it's quite refreshing actually. Some of these individuals that I met, I was like really wowed by them. It was that they were bringing something different and new ways and new ideas, and not just going for the traditional Rolexes, fast cars, and lots of incentive trips that recruitment is known for.
So what is it like? And you can obviously refer to your time being a leader and these things, but obviously even more so now. Like, what is it that you actually look for in? I don't know, you're probably working this out still, but like in terms of like, what are the sort of non-negotiables for you when thinking about the sort of recipe for the culture that you want to build, but most importantly, the recipe you're looking for in people that you think can have the best possible chance of being successful in the environment that you have?
Yeah, I think the key thing is just people that are open to new ideas. There are certain individuals that think that, this way that they've done it is the only way, and they're just not open to change. And we found that a lot, okay, well, I've worked at this brand, this is how we do it. And, this is the only way it should be done. And it's just really just trying to just find consultants that are open and want to learn new things. So many people I speak to, just because they build 250 or 300K, they feel that, they're the sort of daddy now. There is no other way, and this is my way and no other way. We've found that a lot. There's a lot of arrogance, and yeah, just exactly, just being open. I love learning new things. I think it's so important. Just keep an open mind. I'm not the best recruiter out there. It's so important. I could learn stuff from some of my delivery team, and I'm still very much on the dance floor, right? I'm not like on the balconies looking down at everyone. I'm there. I want to be part of it, and it's about finding people like that as well, because the level we're hiring at, we're trying to hire practice leads, and a lot of them. It's about, well, okay, well, I want a team of 5-6 people. I want this, I want that. It's like a bucket list that they expect.
Yeah. And why? So obviously through Recruitment Mentors, one of our values is always be learning. It's the first one on there. And like, it's interesting because a lot, obviously, I guess it's because of the people that I end up speaking to, but a lot of people really resonate with what you're saying, like, and generally have that open-mindedness to always be willing to learn. It's not everyone, obviously, but I think, why do you think people are closed-minded or even, prepared to learn new things?
I think what it is that some, if an individual's been in recruitment for a certain amount of time, obviously they get their own way of working, and they feel that, well, this is working, so why change it? Why fix it? Because it works, but it might have worked in their last company because that's how they worked. But then in a startup environment, it's really important to just be entrepreneurial, but also be, like a big family, right? And not just be sort of sitting on the balcony all day, just looking down. I think you've got to lead by example. It's pivotal.
Well, I think having the open mindedness typically there would be some humility that comes with that, right? Like if you're someone that is open, then there's a good chance that you'll sort of have a bit of humility to be like, oh, actually, yeah, Blaine has 3 years less experience than me, but actually, yeah, he's got a really good idea there, or even be open to that. Do you get what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Rather than
yeah.
looking down on these people,
Exactly.
okay?
Exactly. I mean, it's a mindset thing, isn't it? It's like with anything. It's just, if you can just adjust and just be open and, just try and learn new things, then you might achieve stuff that you never even knew that you could achieve before.
Yeah. What's been the biggest positive so far since taking this leap? Because obviously you've been in an employed environment for over a decade, right?
Yeah,
So obviously
yeah,
you've
yeah.
done
Good.
well, but still it's still a leap of faith that's required. So like, what's been the biggest positive so far this year?
Biggest positive was we hired an individual. He was from a big agency before. He's come in. He's already done 2 deals in about 5 weeks. Both of them
Really?
deals were, yeah. Both of them deals were with a client I knew, and I'd been working with. I just wasn't working in that division of the technical side. I was doing the sales side. And the feedback was we really like him, and we can trust him. And it was them words, we can trust him. For
Nice.
me, I just was like, take a step back and think, wow, that's great. Because if I can build a search business, an agency, whatever people would like to call it, if I can build it on trust, then that would be a huge milestone for me. Because trust is not the most used word in recruitment.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got 5 questions for you to finish this, but before I do, we're just talking a bit about mindset there. Like for you personally, what's been the sort of best piece of advice that you've received that's impacted your mindset or has helped you mentally?
Oh, best one that I've got. Um, I think the best piece was a client said to me before, be open for change,
Mm.
and that was the best piece of advice that I ever had. It was a really senior exec at Google, and that was really it hit me, and I thought, yeah, this is so important.
I think I just that just sort of clicked with me actually. Like actually, one of the benefits out of working in the markets that you do that I didn't think of actually is that you probably get to speak to some pretty impressive, like successful
Yeah.
people, but not just around the success,
Yes.
but people that are self-aware, people that have been on their own journeys that actually you could probably learn a lot from, which is what you just said, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got about 10 different mentors from that are all between 50 and 70, that have all run global businesses. Um, and I speak to them once a quarter, and I take 45 minutes of their time. And it's absolutely amazing. It's been great.
I love that. So I have to ask you about this because this is something that I get asked a lot, and then I'll ask you these 5 questions. But for anyone that wants to be in that position, maybe not 10, but 1 or whatever, but like how did you get yourself in that position to get that time in with these people? A lot of people don't know how. They know they want a mentor, but have no idea how to approach a mentor. How did you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, the I know again, it's just sounds like I said the same thing, but just ask people, because most people would be open to it. Literally half hour, 45 minutes of their time,
But how
especially
did you
being
approach it though? I think it's
yeah.
the it's like how do I ask is the challenge.
So all of those were clients that I've
Okay.
worked with and delivered on projects for. So they're all industry people that I know. And I've just asked them for advice. Look, I'm a young guy, hopefully up and coming. And I want to learn new things. And also, I would like some guidance. And they say, anytime, Blaine. I've
Love that.
never been rejected to say, oh, well, look, I can't do that. Generally, people will give you time.
Yeah, especially if it's coming from the right, like, it seems like that was just actually really genuine, right? If it's coming from the right place, I think a lot of people would say yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's all it is half an hour. It could be 15 minutes, and it could be about anything. It doesn't just have to be work related.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. I've got 5 questions for you. All right.
Brilliant.
First one. First
Yeah.
one is, if you could change the industry, what would you improve?
I would improve the trust of recruitment in general. I think recruitment has a bad name, or it certainly did have a bad name. It's getting much better now. But yeah, I would just improve the trust in the industry, because we're not all bad people, and I think we get slaughtered sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. So the next question, like this could be an audio, it could be something you watch or whatever. But the question is, like, what book have you read that has had the biggest impact on you? But that could be a podcast, it could be something you've watched, but like what have you sort of consumed that's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, so I watch a lot of Tony Robbins.
Okay.
I've watched a lot of these clips and seminars and stuff like that. I actually want to do the one where he was in the Excel, where you sort of walk across the fire, the
I've
coals.
done that one.
Have you done it? Okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I
want to
did
do
that
that.
2
But
years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. So Tony Robbins been a big one for me. That's
Have you
my
read?
main sort of.
I love it. I don't know if you read or anything, or audio book, but I read when I sort of started on this whole sort of self-improvement development journey. One of the books I read quite early on was his book called Awaken the Giant Within, and that's a great book. And it's actually a lot of the things that he talks about at the
Okay.
live event. So I would definitely
Okay.
recommend that.
Yeah. I'll get that. I'm not a huge reader, but if it's on audio,
Well, like,
I'm
or for
there.
audio, yeah, you'd be able to get it on audio book for
Yeah,
sure.
fine.
So
Nice.
next question. If you could write a LinkedIn post that could be seen by every single recruitment consultant across the world, what would you want it to say?
Ooh, that's a tough one. What would I want it to say? I think if it was just targeted for recruitment consultants, I would typically say to them, all of them, to back themselves 100%, because I speak to so many people that have so much self-doubt, and it would be along the lines of that healthy mind one. Get up in the morning, healthy mind, and back yourself. You're good at what you do. So many people hide behind a big company, and sometimes all the brand takes all the credit, but it's all about the individuals, and that's why we've built Wanted on. Individuality is our strength, and
Yeah,
that's what I would say. Back yourself.
love that. What did you spend your first biggest commission paycheck on?
Yeah, my ex CEO would laugh at this. It was a Rolex watch.
Ah, here he is. What Rolex did you get?
It was a Rolex watch. I done quite well because it was actually a stainless steel Rolex Daytona that I actually, before I get robbed after this podcast, I actually sold it about a year and a half ago. And I think at the time I paid around 9,000, and I sold it for 22,000.
Oh, decent. That's obviously the good thing about those watches, isn't it? That they actually can grow in value, can't
Yeah,
they?
but
Yeah.
my wife at the time when I was buying that watch, she was not so happy.
Wasn't pleased.
But she
Love
was
that.
pleased because it got the funding, got some of the funding with Wanted, so it was good.
Last question. What is the ultimate goal for your recruitment career, Blaine?
So I would love to just build an agency full of open and trusted consultants. For me, that's the most important goal. I just want a really good agency that people trust and really value. However big or however small it is, I just think it's so important to do a good job.
Love that. Blaine, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No, great.